I think there are always nits to pick. There are always sort of ways of looking at these reports and saying, on the one hand, on the other hand. But fundamentally, I think what you saw from the president today was the kind of economic cheerleading. This is something that our old friend Larry Kudlow would have been delighted with, probably had a hand in. The notion of cheerleading the economy is something that I think is meaningful. I think it's reasonable to expect that the economy will continue to be strong. The question, of course, is how strong. And obviously, the president has set himself a very high marker. If he doesn't meet it, there may be repercussions. But fundamentally, I think there is a lot to cheer in today's report for Trump, for the Republicans, and certainly going into a midterm election, great news for them.
Austan, how about you? Do you see anything in here? It would appear that the economy in this second quarter benefited from a lot of stimulus, government spending on the one hand and lower taxes on the other.
Yeah, I'm not so sure about that part. I think this is a solid report. It's not just good for Republicans, it's good for the country. If we could grow at 4% for a year, not just for one quarter, we should all be thrilled. Now, the thing is, it's to take nothing away from that number. It's a solid number. It follows the first quarter, which was a pretty mediocre number. And if you remember at that time, consumer spending grew less than 1% at an annualized rate. And we thought that probably had a lot to do with the weather. And so people said, if we have a low number for this first quarter, we'll probably have a high number for the second quarter. And then we'll have to see what the sustained number is going in the third and fourth quarter. I think that's borne out in the data. So I think it's a little weird that the president would try to get out in front of just one number when it followed a number that wasn't that good and say it's permanent. But, you know, he has the right to be happy with this number, and it follows a pattern. If the numbers are not good, he just says nothing. If the numbers are good, he gets up and says, look at what a great number. So I anticipate that'll continue.
Lanhee, back to you. The president talked repeatedly about 3% growth, as he may hope that it goes to 5%, but even at 3%, which is a percentage point higher than it had been, basically, you get a much faster doubling of the American economy. You get many more billions and trillions of dollars in economic output and many more millions of jobs, even at 3%. So my question is something between 2 and 4 basically where you see the economy trending over the next 12 to 18 months, or do you see it slowing from a 3% trend rate?
No, I think that's about right. I mean, if you look, for example, at the last several quarters, particularly since the election, I think 3% is a very good number. I think that's roughly where trend has been. I think going forward, there's probably still some CapEx out there. I think this month's report, you had exports and inventories roughly wash each other out. So I tend to think that there is some optimism in this report going forward. Obviously, there are some wild cards. We don't know how the trade scenario is going to play out. Obviously, good news out of the discussions with the European Union yesterday. We still have China lurking. We don't know what's going to happen there. There's some geopolitical questions with Iran and North Korea. So there are reasons to have a little bit of doubt going forward. But fundamentally, I think the economy is proceeding along quite well. And I think there is great reason for optimism looking ahead.
Final word to you, Austan. When, if foreseeably, do you see the economy slowing from its current pace?
Well, I hope it doesn't slow. I think we're not on a 4+% growth rate sustained basis. But if we could maintain 3% for a couple of years, that'd be great. I think the actions of the Fed doesn't just react to the data. When the Fed raises rates, it does slow the economy. So I think the tension between the president kind of publicly attacking the Fed and saying he doesn't want them to raise rates, I think we might see a little more of that in the coming years.